Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads. We continue with Misery. 14. 51 hours. He knew just how long because of the pen, the flare fine liner he had been carrying in his pocket at the time of the crash. He had been able to reach down and snag it. Every time the clock chimed, he made a mark on his arm. 4 vertical marks and then a diagonal slash to seal the quintet. When she came back, there were 10 groups of 5 and 1 extra. The little groups, neat at first, grew increasingly jagged as his hands began to tremble. He didn't believe he had missed a single hour. He had dozed, but never really slept. Chiming of the clock woke him each time the hour came around. After a while, he began to feel hunger and thirst, even through the pain. It began something like a horse race. At first, the King of Pain was far in the lead, and I got the hungries with some 12 furlongs back. Pretty Thirsty was nearly lost in the dust. Then around sunup on the day after she had left, I got the hungries actually gave the King of Pain a brief run for his money. He had spent much of the night alternately dozing and waking up in a cold sweat, sure he was dying. After a while, I began to hope he was dying. Anything to be out of it. He never had any idea how bad hurting could get. The pilings grew and grew. He could see barnacles which encrusted them, could see the pale, drowned things lying limply in the clefts of wood. They were lucky things. For them the hurt was over. Around 3 he lapsed into a bout of useless screaming. By noon of the second day, hour 24, he realized that as bad as the pain in the legs and pelvis was, something else was making him hurt. It was withdrawal. Calling this horse Junkie's Revenge if you wanted. He needed the capsules in more ways than one. He thought of trying to get out of bed, but the thought of the thump and the drop and the accompanying exclamation of pain constantly deterred him. He could imagine all too well, so vivid, how it would feel. He might have tried anyway, but she had locked the door. What would he do besides crawl across it, snake-like and like there? In desperation, he pushed back the blankets with his hands for the first time, hoping against, it wasn't bad as the shapes of legs made seemed to suggest it was. It wasn't as bad, it was worse. He stared with horror at what he had come below the knees. In his mind he heard the voice of Ronald Reagan and King's Row shrinking, "Where's the rest of me?" The rest of him was there, and he might even get out of this. The process for doing so seemed ever remote. He supposed it was technically possible, and he might never walk again. Surely not until each of his legs had been rebroken, perhaps in several places, and pinned with steel, and mercilessly overhauled, and subjected half to 100 shrieking, painful indignities. She had splitted them. Of course he had known that. Felt the rigid, ungiving shapes, but now he had not known what she had done with it. The lower parts of both legs were circled with slim steel and rods, looked like hat-sawed remains of aluminum on crutches. The rods had been strenuously taped so that from the knees down he looked like Imhotep when he had been discovered in his tomb. The legs themselves meandered strangely up to his knees, turning outward there, jagging inward there. His left knee, a throbbing focus of pain, no longer seemed to exist at all. There was a calf and a thigh, and then a sickening bunch in the middle that looked like a salt dome. His upper legs were badly swollen and seemed to have bowed slightly outward. His thighs, crotch, even his penis, were all mottled with fading bruises. He thought his lower legs might be shattered. That was not so, as it turned out. They had been pulverized. Moaning and crying, he built the blankets up. No rolling out of bed. Better to lie here, die here. Better to accept this level of pain, horrific as it was, till all the pain was gone. Around 4 o'clock of the second day, Pretty Thirsty made its move. He had been aware of the dryness in his mouth and throat for a long time, but now it began to seem more urgent. His tongue felt thick, too large, swallowing hurt. He began to think of the pitcher of water she had dashed away. He dozed, woke, dozed. Day passed away, night fell. He had to urinate. He laid the top of the sheet over his penis, hoping to create a crude pillow, and urinated through his cupped and shaking hands. He tried to think of it as recycling and drank what he had managed to hold and then licked his wet palms. Here was something else he reckoned he would not tell people about if he lived long enough to tell them anything. He began to believe she was dead. She was deeply unstable and unable. Well, people frequently took their own lives. He saw her, so vivid, pulling over to the side of the road, and old Bessie taking a .44 from under the seat, putting it in her mouth, and shooting herself. With misery dead, I don't want to live. Goodbye, cruel world. And he cried, through a rain of tears, and pulled the trigger. He cackled, then moaned, then screamed. The scream began with him, but took no other notice. Or an accident. Was that possible? Oh, yes, sir. He saw her driving grimly, going too fast, and then, he doesn't get it from my side of the family, going blank and driving off the side of the road. Down and down and down, hitting once and bursting into a fireball, dying without even knowing it. If she was dead, he would die here, a rat in a dry trap. He kept thinking unconsciousness would come and relieve him, but unconsciousness declined. Instead, hour 30 came, and hour 40. Now King of Pain and Pretty Thirsty merged into one single horse. I got the hungriest had been left in the dust long since. Began to feel nothing more than a slice of living tissue on a microscope slide or a worm hook. Something anyway, twisting endlessly and waiting only to die. 15. When she came, and he thought at first she must be a dream. Then a reality, or mere brute survival, took over, and he began to moan and beg and plead. All of it broken, all of it coming from a deep well of unreality. The one thing he saw clearly, that she was wearing a dark blue dress and a sprigged hat. It was exactly the sort of outfit he had imagined her wearing on the stand in Denver. Her color was high, and her eyes sparkled with life and vivacity. She was close to pretty as Annie Wilkes ever could be, and tried to remember that scene later when only clear image he could fix upon, or her flushed cheeks and that sprigged hat. From some final stronghold of sanity and evaluative clarity to the rational Paul Sheldon had thought, she looks like a widow who just got fucked after a 10-year dry spell. In her hand she held a glass of water, a tall glass of water. Take this, she said, and put a hand, still cool from the out of doors, on the back of his neck so he could sit up enough to drink without choking. He took 3 fast mouthfuls, the pores on the arid plane of his tongue widening and clamoring the shock of the water, some of it spilling down his chin and onto the t-shirt he wore, and she threw it away from him. He mewed for it, holding his shaking hands out. No, she said. No, Paul. A little at a time or you'll vomit. After a bit, she gave it back to him and allowed 2 more swallows. The stuff, he said, coughing. He sucked at his lips and ran his tongue over them and then sucked his tongue. He could vaguely remember drinking his own piss. How hot it had been, how salty. The capsules. Please, please, Annie. For God's sake, help me. This pain is so bad. I know it is, but you must listen to me, she said, looking at him with that stern yet maternal expression. I had to get away and think. I have thought deeply, and I hope I thought well. I was not entirely sure. My thoughts are often muddy. I know that. I accept that. So I can remember where I was all those times they kept asking me about. So I prayed. There is a God, you know, and he answers prayers. He always does. So I prayed. I said, Dear God, Paul Sheldon may be dead when I get back. But God said, he will not be. I have spared him, so you may shoo him away the way he must go. She said shoo, as in shoe, but Paul was barely hearing her anyway. Her eyes were fixed on the glass of water. She gave him another 3 swallows. He slurped like a horse, burped, and cried out as shudder cramps coursed through him. During all of this, she looked at him benignly. I will give you your medication and relieve your pain, she said, but first you have a job to do. I'll be right back. She got up and headed for the door. No, he screamed. She took no notice at all. He lay in bed, cocooned in pain, trying not to moan and moaning anyway. And I'm going to stop right there. See you later.